Good morning. We continue our review of the conclusion of Hemshech Ayin Beis based on the summary that I've written up, a 47-page summary. And we're going through it, the actual text. It's on the group, on our WhatsApp group. It's been posted. And we are on page 10, I believe. 10 or 11? Let me see. Let's see where we are. I think it's page 11, actually, top of page 11. So we're going item by item, trying to figure out item by item the questions that the Rebbe Rashab asked him didn't answer, as well as different themes that he began, and he said, Kamoshe is bar lekamon, as will be explained later. So we're going through item by item, and we're now on top of page 11. We're middle of the discussion of Ner Mitzvah. So just to sum up, the first part was Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, how that flame of the Nefesh HaLekis, through the contemplation of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, the different levels of Yichud, ultimately affects the animal soul. V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha b'shnei yitzarecha, that it too should be harnessed toward loving God, a flame, in a fiery flame and passion. The second part was how the neshama itself has such a power. What is the power that the neshama has to achieve that? The third is what is Ner Mitzvah? And that's what we're middle of. What is Ner Mitzvah? And the three components within it, the wick, the oil, and the fire and the flame. And how Ner Mitzvah adds to Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. That's what we've been learning. We've been learning it first in the Alter Rebbe's Maimer, and now we're in the middle of the text of the Mitteler Rebbe's Maimer. So I broke it down into points. Point number one, which was the three components of Ner Mitzvah, the wick, the oil, and the fire, the flame. The second is the power of what a mitzvah does, the Kedusha Atzmis, higher than Chochmah and Kedusha of Atzilus, and higher than Seviv Kalalman. It draws the Kedusha Atzmis. And the third section, the third point, HaKoyach Shel Ner Mitzvah Lahalis HaNefesh HaBamis, the power that affects even the Nefesh HaBamis, as we learned yesterday, that even though the Nefesh HaBamis, you would think, it's Seichel Anushi, human intelligence, can only reach that much in understanding God. But a mitzvah introduces the godly dimensions that are beyond the shtalshlus, beyond the structure, and that too is introduced to the Nefesh HaBamis. So it too, and the reason for that, as he said, was because the mitzvahs, number one, is Ratzna Elyon, and not Seifan B'tchilosim B'Seifan, that the beginning is wedged in the end. So Dafka in the Maisa mitzvahs, and they're done Dafka in the Shama Beguf, which means with the body and the animal soul. So the animal soul is also participating and thus being elevated by the mitzvah to an even higher level than it would be on its own, just with the Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. So now we're up to point 4, which is the top of page 11 in this essay, which again can be seen as posted on the Ayin Beis group, the Ayin Beis WhatsApp group. So we're going to number 4. Number 4, and again, all these points are in the Alter Rebbe's Maimer, but they're very brief there. And the Mitteler Rebbe is elaborating. What's point number 4? Leifshin Tallis v'Tefillin kedem atfila, that we put on a Tallis and Tefillin before davening. Why? Lahamshech b'chinas makiv l'maylo lahales es hanefesh habamis b'tefillah. So the next part, if you remember in the Alter Rebbe's Maimer, was that this will explain, since mitzvahs elevate even higher and give power to the birur of the nefesh habamis in davening, that the neshama achieves on its own. So if you can introduce mitzvahs into the davening, then of course the mitzvahs now become part of the process. And that's why we put on Tallis and Tefillin. That's how the Alter Rebbe explains it. So let's read it inside. And this is now the Mitteler Rebbe's language, elaborating on this point from the Alter Rebbe. So again, top of page 11, in this essay, He says like this: "Ubechol zeh," with all the above about the power of a mitzvah, of mitzvahs, Yuvan Atam will understand the reason. Mashat tzarich ha'adam lilbesh haTallis ulaniach tefillin kedem krishma. Why a person has to put on a tallis, the prayer shawl, and don tefillin before Shema. Now remember, Krishma is the central cornerstone of davening. So sometimes it says kedem atfila, sometimes it says kedem Shema. We actually put it on not right before Shema. We put it on right at the beginning of davening, Shachris, Birchas HaShachar, where we also say a Shema, but we're talking about the main Shema. But generally speaking, it's really kedem Krishma. As a matter of fact, there's a Maimer Chazal that says that kol ha'omer Krishma b'lei tefillin. I don't know if he's going to bring it here. The Tzemach Tzedek brings it a little later. It's a very strong expression. As someone that brings that says Shema without tefillin, it's like someone who brings karbonis without nesachim, without the pourings and libations that are necessary before you bring a carbon. We'll talk about that later. But bottom line is that why we put on Tallis and tefillin before Shema, and we'll understand now why. And here you see clearly, it's certain that the neshama has the power, the neshama be'adam, the neshama within the person, l'chaven b'krishma b'yechudei la b'kavana v're'usa deliba. So here he clearly states it. It definitely has the power to say Shema with the right intentions, the chaven. In other words, not just to say Shema, but to the intention of Shema with Yechudei Elah, the kavana with intentional, but usa deliba, and with the desire of the heart. So why do we need to have addition to that, the mitzvah of Tallis? So the Alter Rebbe didn't ask the question; he just said it as a fact. That the reason, since mitzvahs are mamshech kedusha elyon from kedusha atzmis, that's why we put it on. The Mitteler Rebbe is spelling it out because, like we learned, Ner mitzvah definitely adds something. But why do you need it if the neshama can do it on its own? Acha inyan hu. The answer is lefisha bekrishma tzarich ha'adam lahamshech kedusha elyon de'echad be'eses spheres debiyah. He's spelling it out. In Shema, the person has to draw down the kedusha law, ilyena, the higher sanctity or holiness of the divine. Remember, kedusha refers to the divine that's beyond existence. But we're talking now kedusha within Ishtalshlus. There's two levels. There's the kedusha that is beyond, but within Ishtalshlus higher, and then the kedusha atzmis of mitzvahs. So during Shema, we have to be mamsha kedusha ilyena of echad, Hashem echad, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem echad, be'eses spheres debiyah. In the 10 spheres of biyah, be'echad, be'amrei, havaya Elokeinu, havaya echad kanal. Yeah, be'amrei. As the person says, havaya Elokeinu, we say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem echad. What's the kavanah? The kavanah is to draw the Hashem Elokeinu into echad, into biyah. The achdus into biyah. V'hu mashamayich b'Hashem b'dala de'echad, and that's when we say hamayich be'echad. When you extend the saying of echad or the contemplation of echad, the dal lamliche b'shamayim u'ba'aretz. So it says clearly to make sure that God is lamliche, to crown God as the sovereign leader, the sovereign king of heaven and earth. So clearly, you're talking about Hashem as He relates to heaven and earth, meaning you're mamshech into biyah. In the 6 different directions above, like we said, echad, this ches is the 7 heavens and earth, 7 heavens and earth, and the 4 different directions. But it's not just the 4 directions; it's also above and below, and east, west, north, south. So bottom line, that's what the kavanah is in Shema. The Kabbalah's Malchus Shamayim, Zu, and this accepting, receiving the yoke of heaven, during when we say Shema, Hashem Echad, Zeu b'chinas primius v'atzmus de Ein Sof Baruch Hu, Batzmuse mamish shenikra melech hakodesh melech merumim levade. One second. Okay. So this is a little, just to correct, I have to correct the language. I think he's going out and saying that this Kabbal's Malchus Shamayim that comes through mitzvahs, it sounds like. I'm not sure, because I see that he elaborates. But clearly what he's saying so far is that Shema draws it down into existence. I think this is a classic Mitteler Rebbe style where he right away goes to another level and he assumes we'll figure it out. But I think what he wants to say is that even Shema is mamshich from higher levels, primus atzmus, but he's going to say it's still commensurate to existence. And mitzvahs is beyond that. That is where we're headed. But let's read it in his language, and just in case anyone's confused, I just wanted to clarify that. She says, Kabbal's Malchus Shamayim Zu, which apparently is talking not about mitzvahs, he's talking about Shema still, on its own. The Adam, the person, the neshama doing this on its own, is primis v'atzmus de'ensa bara kamoishu batzmusei mamish, shenikra melech HaKodesh. We're talking now, the Eibush says is atzmus mamish, melech HaKodesh, the king that is removed, HaKodesh, melech merumam levade, how he's completely apart, on his own, exclusive and unique. Mamish, l'mayla megdusha shaligabe ishtalshlus ha'elamus. That's higher than the Kedusha that relates to Ishtalshus Ha'elamus. So seemingly this seems to be a higher level, not the lower level. But as I said, let's hold up. I'm just going to read it and then I'll explain it. Shemisnasim Yemeis Elam Levad. Because there, like we learned before, the lower level of Kedusha is higher than existence, but Misnasim Yemeis Elam. It relates to Yemeis Elam, to the days, to time. However, it's higher than that. And then there's a level that's completely exclusive. And in Shema, we're talking now without Tallis and Tefillin, without the mitzvahs. This comes through the interface, through the process of understanding godliness, that the nishmas adam that elevates above, mitzad amkus hadas v'izbonus, due to the profundity or the immersion of his das, his perception, his bonus, and his contemplation, b'chol echad lefi erech, each person according to his commensurate to his level. V'kach yuchol lechaven daite b'asogas atzmis elikus. And that's the way, that's the only tool he has. The only way he has to relate to godliness, even the highest levels of godliness that are beyond existence, is through his das, as best as he can with his seichel. The afagav, the less machshava, tfisa beklal, even though no thought can grasp him at all, God, nevertheless in Shema, it's not just machshava, it's also re'usa deliba, desire of the heart, b'kavona teva, with good intention, nitfiz b'kol nitzut saliki, b'krishma. You can grasp him in every divine spark in Shema, and due to the root of Neshamas Yisrael, that Havai Lekov is with him. Okay, so what he's saying right now is very clear. He's saying that in Shema, number one, we're mamshechin into Biyah, into Shemayim va'aretz. Means that you're drawing down the divine into existence and relating to existence. Yes, you're drawing from the highest levels because you're saying Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and we learned that refers to Yichud Tata, Yichud Elah, and the Yichud of Das Elyon and Das Tachton, which is Atzmos. However, it's Lefi Erech still, even the higher level of Kedusha that's completely beyond, is still commensurate to your ability, as much as you can understand. That's what he's saying here. Where mitzvahs are going to come in, mitzvahs are going to give you something that's beyond your ability. So Shema reaches very high levels, but it's still all commensurate and relative to the person, every person in their ability, because the neshama, at the end of the day, is a divine entity, so it could access even levels that are higher than our understanding, but it's still commensurate. Well, Omnam, And now comes the addition. This is all. Remember, the question was, why can't Shema do it alone without the Tallis and Tefillin, without the mitzvahs? So now he's going to say, "V'omnam ikra koyach v'eiz lazeh." So though you can achieve a lot through Shema, the person himself, but the primary power and strength to achieve this, Hashem oiz la'amayite. Now he's saying Hashem is giving us something additionally. Till now, the neshama, even though it comes from Hashem, but once you have it, it's yours. You have a soul, and when you say Shema, you're activating your own effort and your initiative, the soul that was given to you, that's your birthright. That's who you are. You're a child. The neshama is a chelik elikam and malmamish, and all the other expressions we've used. But now Hashem oiz la'amayite. Hashem is giving an additional strength, and this is the primary strength to accomplish and reach the highest levels. Zehu ba aidei hagdomis hamitzvahs the Tallis dafke. This comes now and adds something. Hashem says, I'm giving you, in addition to whatever your neshama can achieve on its own, I'm giving you now a mitzvah called Tallis, shekedem atfilah, that you put on prior to davening. Lefisha mitzvahs hem b'chinas makav ve'elyon ala neshama canal. Because the mitzvahs are like a makav ve'elyon, like a garment that surrounds and encompasses and embraces the neshama, like we said before. Umagam, and in addition to that, and moreover, the mitzvah satifas talis, especially the mitzvah of wrapping yourself with a talis. Why? Because the mitzvah tzitzis shkula sheshkula connected kol mitzvahs. Because the mitzvah of tzitzis, Chazal tell us, shkula is equal in weight to all other mitzvahs. So it's not just another mitzvah, it's a mitzvah that corresponds with and is equal in power to all other mitzvahs. V'atalis ubchinas makif mamish. So that's the tzitzis. The talis is literally a makif. It's a garment that wraps you around, that you wrap around your body. B'chlolos, a mamish makif b'chlolos, ki lamit. Yeah. Okay, so you have the tzitzis, shkula connected, called the mitzvahs. You have the talis, that's mamish makif, that surrounds the person. And now he continues. Ki lamid b'chutin. The talis, I think it's supposed to be lamed chutin maybe. The 30 knots in the talis, hein lamed b'chut. The lamed beis, I'm sorry, the 32. I have to look if this language here is correct or what he means. Hein lamed beis nesivus chachma. They're the 32 paths of chachma, the makif shalamayla, of the makif above. The ksiv eita erke salma. Like it says, Hashem wraps himself, the light, like a salma, like a garment, like the talis. Oy levushel ketlak chiver, or his garments are white like snow, that it says by Atik Yemen. For who inyan prisa de malka shamayim le'ela. This is prisa de malka. This is the garment of the king above. Shenimshech ala odom b'chinas makiv dafka. He's just giving us the technical level of what the talis is. So the talis is prisa de malka shamayim, malka shamaya or malka shamayim de le'ela. Shenimshech ala odom b'chinas makiv dafka. Like when we say we appointed a king with Kabbalah Shel Malchus Shemayim by accepting his yoke. Let me stop there. Okay, so what did he say here now? That in addition to what we can achieve through our own effort in Shema, Hashem gave us an additional power, and that is the mitzvahs, and specifically the mitzvah of talis to put on before davening, before we say Shema, and that is mamshich. First of all, shkula connected kol mitzvahs, all the mitzvahs, and the makif of the lamed beis chutin, and that gives us the power to reach a higher level than we could on our own. That's basically what he's saying here. But he's going to elaborate. This is, again, classic Mitteler Rebbe style, where there's a lot of, I don't want to use the word run on, but a lot of ideas that just flow very quickly, and then you have to slowly unpack it. But I think it's pretty clear where he's going here. He hasn't finished yet, but I'm going to stop here if anyone wants to ask anything. And then we'll continue how he's continued to explain this. Okay? So now he's going to speak more about these two different levels, what we achieve through our own kavanah when we say Shema, and what the Tallis adds. So he says like this now. V'hari Amru, Chazal say, Lama kodma Shema l'v'hoyim Shemaya. Why do we first say Shema before we say v'hoyim Shemaya? And the answer is because the first thing you need, the Kabbalah love El Machal Shemayim Tchila Ba'asoga V'tam. That because you first need to contemplate and accept God's sovereignty, God's kingship, Ba'asoga V'tam, through the contemplation of Shema. Like he said before, a person with the Ma'arich Be'echad, the intention of relating to and accepting God as best as you can. And then you say, V'hoyim Shemaya, as the Gemara says there, is Kabbalah Shel Mitzvahs. So it could be he's hinting to why there we say clearly first Shema, then Mitzvahs. And yet we put on Tefillin, Tallis and Tefillin before saying Shema. So I think he's going to explain that. So he says like that. Ach kedei sheyuchel lechaven daite, la'mitis hayichudei Eloah, or hayichud elyon, maybe is really the expression, not just yichudei Eloah, all the levels of yichud. Let me just see a second what he meant earlier. 1 second. Yeah, it could be yichud elyon, not yichudei Eloah. It means all the yichudim. But in order for a person to be able to concentrate and focus their das to the true nature of the divine unity, higher unity, upakavona teva, and with proper intention, urusa deliba, and with the desire of the heart, meaning even beyond just the mind, the heart, the emotional connection to that, bekrishma, ishmat, tzorich sheyamshich kabbalas malchus shemayim, the b'chinas makiv shelamayla min hasoga v'tam. So this is essentially what the Alter Rebbe says in the Maimer Hamagbihi that we read, that before there's the halah from the below, you need the makiv from above that gives you strength. That's what he's saying here. So even before that, even before saying Shema, which is necessary to begin the process, we're mamshich, the Kabbalah is from makiv shalamaylam and asaga v'tam. So when you're putting on Tallis, what you're doing is, you're drawing a makiv that's higher than what your mind can understand, which is a Shema. And how? But atifus hatalis, by wrapping the Tallis al gabe reshe, above his head. Remember, the Tallis surrounds the whole person, and it also goes above your head. Shema is a contemplation with your mind, and ru'usa deliba, and your depths of your heart. Now we're talking about something that precedes that to give you the power, like in a sense, to launch the process. It's like someone like helping you get it going. It's like a type of startup. So that's what the Tallis does. V'chein b'mitzvahs tefillin, and the same with the putting on tefillin. Shal gabe hamoichin shebereish, which we also put on top of the meich. The tefillin sheberosh goes on top of the head. Shesham munachim pasha deshma v'hoyim shemaya. There inside the tefillin, inside the box, is placed the parchment with the parsha of Shema v'hoyim Shemaya. The thing that you're going to be saying when Shema and contemplating on is already in the box, in klav gashmi, b'ksav, in the physical parchment in writing, ubeblita al gaba aresh, and it's protruding above your head. It's not what your mind is thinking. The mind is getting power from something that's protruding like a makif above your head, with the Shema and the Hayim Shemaya within it. And that's going to give you the power that when you say Shema and contemplate on it, you'll be able to reach even higher levels. And that's the Ikar Koyach V'Eiz, the main power and strength that helps us reach these higher levels. Dafke ayidei dafke nimshach min hahelem de makif. So it's dafke through these two things, the Tallis, which is makif ala reish, that is above the head, and the tefillin, especially tefillin sheber rosh, you're drawing from the concealed state of the makif, this makif, legili eir, to revealed energy or light, sheyuchel lahasig basog v'tam, that gives the power that you'll be able to comprehend. In comprehension, with a logical comprehension and reasoning. The Kabbalah Sel Malchus Shamayim, appreciating it, Apnimis Kanal Bekrishma. When you say the Shema, to be able to experience it in an internalized way when you do contemplate it. So Shema is obviously the center of it all. But to give strength, to be able to achieve that level, we have the mitzvahs of Tallis and Tefillin that help us get there. So basically it means that on one hand you have to use your seichel as much as you can, but you're given strength. So you start davening not all alone and trying your own effort. You're getting strength from the makif of Tallis and Tefillin that's being mamshech from these higher levels. So then when you contemplate and really fully appreciate everything we learned about Yechud Tata and Yechud Elah and Yechud of the two Yechudim, you have much more power to achieve your goal here. Uma'amesu, the emes hayichud elyon or Yechud Elah krishma. I think what he's saying is this also helps make it resonate. Ma'amis means when you bring proof to something, or not proof. Proof is not the right word here. When you do something that helps you relate to and recognize the truth of something. So it's like a person, for example, could daven anywhere, and yet when you go into a shul or you go into a holy place, why is it easier to daven there? Because the environment is more conducive. So it's a type of ma'amis. It creates an atmosphere where you are surrounded by more kedusha. So the same idea is here. Once you have the Tallis and Tefillin, there's a certain ma'amis, a certain resonating element that helps the yichud elyon or the yichud elah of Shema. Gam b'yispailas ha'avarabah v'ahavta b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha. And also the stimulation that it will bring, which is the loving of God with all your heart, with all your soul, b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha, with all your heart, including the animal soul. So in other words, Tallis and Tefillin create a situation where you're drawing down into your life a higher level of kedusha. You're just surrounding yourself with kedusha. So it makes total sense. So of course you could achieve it to some extent even without it. But the ikar koyach v'eiz comes from that, and that's why we proceed Shema with Tallis and Tefillin. Ad sheyachal lovi lidei ma'aseh b'nisoyin b'pel mamish, to the point that will help him arrive to action, to bring it down not just into a contemplation and a feeling of love, but also action b'nisoyin b'pel mamish, an actionable behavior. And that's what it says. Even if they take your life, you're dedicated completely. That's higher than the keli of nefesh, ruach, and neshama. So bottom line, he's saying that the whole Shema and what comes afterwards, is enhanced by the Tallis and Tefillin preceding the reciting of Shema and its contemplation. It's very brief here, min hakeli denaran, because obviously b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol meidecha are 3 levels, and he's not going into the details. We did learn about them in Ayin Beis more. Chavavcha is, of course, the nefesh l'kis and nefesh habamis. Nafshecha is afila neitlas nafshecha. He called it bina. B'chol meidecha, he called even a higher level. If I recall correctly, the level of chachma or kesed even. But regardless, all of that is enhanced by the Hakdama of Tallis and Tefillin. Okay, let me stop if there are any questions before we continue the next section. which is all still explaining this point. Okay.
The two questions. Why, if this is such a big help for us, the Tallis and Tefillin, why do bar mitzvah boys? I mean, maybe not, but only put on Tefillin. Why don't we start with Tallis also at Yigimel
Can you
for
find?
Alpha?
Can you think of an answer?
We're not ready for that kind of hamshacha. That wouldn't help us at that age.
Like everything in life. I mean, a child is still a child, even if he's bar mitzvah. He's not just ready. Everything is stages. So first is the stage of tefillin, then the stage of talis. He doesn't explain that here. There may be some Maimonim. I don't remember if anyone discusses directly why a bar mitzvah boy does not. I mean, there are customs by the Sfardim and others. They do put on a talis, but why by us we don't put on a talis? I mean, I could speculate because it's a higher makif, and the bar mitzvah is just the beginning of moichen de gadlus, and more or less when it reaches once he gets married, it's a higher level of aveda that he can now draw also the talis. That would be the most likely explanation. I don't, as I said, it doesn't say anything here, but I have to look around if anyone discusses it. But it's definitely something in that category.
And I assume the same answer is what do women
So we
use
spoke
to
about
help
women.
them?
In general, with women, anything that they don't do as a physical mitzvah means they have it already within them. Like, for example, bris, milah. Same thing with tefillin in general. They are the level of Shabbos. Shabbos, we don't put on tefillin either. Why don't you ask, why don't we put on tefillin before Shema on Shabbos? Because Shabbos accomplishes that. What tefillin accomplishes throughout the week. We do put on a talis on Shabbos. And women have that innately within them. That's the usual explanation. Like I mentioned, why we don't blow shofar when Shabbos is Rosh Hashanah. Because Shabbos is mamshich. What shofar is mamshich. Any other questions? Okay. Now the Mitteler Rebbe continues, again, his classic style. He's continuing, since he's already talking about all of Shema, what happens after the end of Shema when we say Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Elokechem Emes? Then we say Emes v'yatziv v'nochen. So he's going to bring that now into it. He says, V'zeu sha'imrim, Emes v'yatziv v'nochen. After Shema, we say, true, it stands, it's correct, all the different expressions there that verify and confirm everything that we just said in Shema. What's the point of saying that? So he's saying because it substantiates. L'hovi l'kiyum ha'maisa. You're saying that in order to bring everything that you just experienced, the contemplation, the emotions, va'ava, bring it down b'chol avavcha, chol nafshecha, chol meidecha, with a talis and tefillin preceding it all, giving it the power to really what? To become an actual, tangible part of your life. That's what he's saying. L'hovi l'kiyum ha'maisa, shezeu ha'ikr, be'emes, be'reish teich seif. Because that's the ikr. At the end of the day, all of this is not just about a contemplation on divine unity. It's about transforming this world in action. Like we learned before, no, it's tchilas b'seifan. The beginning is wedged in the end. To make a dira b'tachtenim. That's the ikr be'emes, to bring it down into actuality. V'hainu, mashi yiskayim ha'ava l'kiz, the b'chol avovcha. That means what? That not just that it stays in Shema, that moment you have that love, but it preserved, it's perpetuated. Yiskayim also it is ratified. That love of God, of B'chol Avavcha, Kol Hayim B'kiyim Nitzchi. You want it to be sustained all day long in a Kiyim Nitzchi, in a perpetual sustenance, to be perpetuated, Kiyim Nitzchi. Sheyim is sur mara v'asei tev, that it should affect your life in avoiding negative things, evil, and in doing good. V'lo yufsak v'lo yivut le'elam, And that should never pause or stop at all. So it's one thing experiencing all this, even if you do it well in Shema, with the Tallis, with everything, but you want it to really become something that becomes part of your life, completely internalized. Like we always say, the whole point is integration, to be integrated in your life. That's the emes v'yatzav v'nach. That afterwards we're saying everything that just we talked about now, we're going to so-called seal and ratify and confirm and make sure that it continues into your life, even after davening, even after you stop davening, even after you take off the Tallis and Tefillin. So now he goes back and says, in order to achieve all this, Mitteler Rebbe is just making the case how much power we need to get it done. So even though, yes, you could say Shema with Kavanah, but the more strength that we can get, the Koyach and Oiz, the more beneficial it'll be. So in Kol Zeh, all the above, to achieve these levels of connection in the Izbananus of Hashem Echad, and in the Ava, the Rusa Deliba and Ava B'chol Avavcha B'chol Nafshcha B'chol Meidecha, and that it should continue and be perpetuated and sustained all day long in a permanent fashion. Kol Zeh Ef Shalias Mitzad Asogel Lekiz V'Yispailas Ha'ava Shenel de Mezeh B'Krishme. That's not possible to be achieved only through the contemplation, the divine contemplation, and even the excitement and the stimulation of the love that it gives birth to in Shema. Shu nifsek umizbatl miyad achla tefillah. Because that alone, on its own, will not have the power to continue to impact you. It'll be nifsek, it'll pause and stop right after davening. Actually, nishar memena reishim klal, to the point that it won't even leave any effect. Ki yadua, as it's known, sha'ava shaba mitzad hasoga, the nefesh alikis, that a love that comes from the comprehension of the divine soul, chilefes ve'veres, it passes, it comes and goes. I think that's supposed to be chulu. Not sure, I have to look it up. Chilefes ve'veres. Oh, actually, I have here the sefer itself. Let me just see. I have it right in front of me. Didn't realize. Chulu, yeah. It's supposed to be chulu. I'm looking up already the Lamed Beis that I said before I would look up. Let me just see something. Lamed Beis Chutin de Tallis. That was also, should have said Lamed Beis Chutin. It only said Lamed. Just a minute. Yeah. A few corrections I have to make here. So what does he say here? Chulu, chelefes ve'veres, ve'ein zeh nikra emes. And we can't call it emes, because truth is something that has to be permanent. A truth that lasts only a certain period of time, you can't really call it true truth. Shari omar svas emes tochen or tichen la'ad. Va'ad argia loshen sheker. Because svas emes, true words, when you say true words fast, like a lips of truth, they last forever. Tochen la'ad. Whereas adargia loshen sheker, something has a tinge of something not true, sheker, is only like a rega. Adargia, it's only temporary. So the fact is that since contemplation, as powerful as it is only as long as you're contemplating on it, but then when you go back to your regular life, it won't last. You can't call it emes v'yatziv v'nochem. Ach, so then what does give power to let it last and be sustained and remain permanent? Ach, hamakayim u'maimid. What preserves, or what what sustains, u'maimid, and establishes it to stand in a permanent way, b'kiyam nitzchi, that it should be sustained permanently. la'ava alekis, lamaisa, to a divine love in action, b'li nefila, la'elam, that it should never fall, it should never be paused or never be diminished, or in any way dissipate. Zeu sheba mekeach er makif ha'elyon, the Tallis of Tefillin. That comes from the koyach of the er makif of the Tallis and Tefillin that precedes Shema. Shalov ashkedem atfilah, that he put on before davening. Shenesun koyach ve'ez, that gives power and strength. Lamakiv dinaran, to the makif of nefesh ruach neshama. Sheikayim lahasoga va'ava, should be sustained. Lahasoga va'ava shekrishma ki, sheikayim lahasoga va'ava dikrishma, probably. I'm just looking it up again. It's exactly, the language needs to be okay. To preserve and perpetuate the understanding and the love of Krishna, kiyum nitzchi, infuse it with a permanence, ula'amis es ha'ava shalei tipa la'elam, and to ensure, to fortify, or to verify or confirm, what I said before, I used the word before kiyum, to establish that it should never leip tipul ba'elam, it should never waver. The lemeven. And that's enough for those that understanding ones. That concludes this section, page 394 and 395 of the Mitteler Rebbe's Maimer, to explain the function of Tallis and Tefillin, after explaining in general what mitzvahs do. So this is a really powerful piece that can explain why we put on Tallis and Tefillin before davening, and it's what it achieves. So let me stop here for any questions.
Normally, we say for something to have kiyum, it has to be integrated inside us with panemius. And here we're saying that the strength to do that is from the makif, which I find is very interesting. That the makif is accomplishing that permanence rather than...
No, it's giving you the power to integrate it. That's the point.
That's the point.
Look, think of it practically. When you're studying with a teacher, or someone is a mashpia or guiding you, and they're training you, you want to have as much strength that they can give you as possible. Ultimately, it's going to be up to you and your avodah. But just like we talk about chinuch, like Chanukah's habayis, while you dedicate the temple or you dedicate a home. So it says in Chassidus that when you dedicate something, just like when you send a child to school the first time, you give them gifts, you launch them. It's a launch. Because you want to give as much power from the makifim, because the avodah is going to be a very long and arduous journey and a difficult one. So you give as much strength as you can. So in addition to whatever he's going to do on his own, the Shema in this case, you're preceding it with the koiches of makifim, of Tallis and Tefillin, that just elevates a person to a higher place. So then when it comes afterwards, remember they're going to take off the Tallis and Tefillin, and they're going to stop davening at some point. So all of that just gives you so much more power. Like by Matan Torah, Hashem lifted up the Yid. Kof aleim har kigigis. He actually surrounded them with a mountain. It was also a makif. The makif of Avarab. So you could say, that's not their Avodah, but that's to give them strength, that when they start doing their Avodah, they were given a lot of koiches. It's like good parents. What do? The early years of your childhood's development, you give them as much as you can give them. Obviously not spoiling them, but because at that point they don't have much on their own. The whole point is, however, that the more you give them then, as they grow older, and they begin to do the Avodah of their own, they'll have all that strength that help launch them. So see it that way. That's the point here. This is not to replace the integration that you're talking about, or the internalizing, or the Avodah Pnimius. Absolutely not. But it gives as much strength as we can to get to that place. That's the general idea. If you go back to the Torah, he made it clear that if you want to really elevate something, you have to first, if you want it to be elevated from below, you first have to give it power from above. So you give it strength, and then it's like somebody helping you launch yourself. So they run with you, get you going, and now you run on your own. That's the essentially the process.
Comes to my mind that maybe the Rebbe, a Hasidic Rebbe, our Rebbe, provides that sort of like, there's a reason why Chabad Hasidim, like in Russia, were able to hold on, because in addition to Koach Atzmi, Koach Panimius, we have this makiv, so to speak, the Rebbe helping us constantly in all our ways, and that gives it a mitzvah in our lives.
Yeah,
And
that's correct.
permanent.
But on the other hand, we say in Chabad, tzaddik b'manasa yichya yechaya. That as much as the tzaddik gives you, you have to do it on your own, and you can't rely completely on the makif of the tzaddik, of the Rebbe. So there's both sides; they both complement each other. Like the Rebbe will say many times, he told people, till here I held your hand. Now it's time for you to walk on your own. In a way, Chavches Nissen said that. But that doesn't mean walk on your own where, God forbid, the Rebbe is letting go. He's just, in a sense, receding a bit and saying, and now I want to show what you're able to do. I've given you direction, I've given you strength, inspiration, and everything. But now, tut als vasir kent. It's still with the Rebbe's power, but it's not as direct and as obvious. Like I said, when a person is younger, you help them more. But at some point, you say, you know what? I helped you swim till here. I helped you build yourself up. Now I want to see what you accomplish without me holding on to you in a revealed way. However we explain that. The shalheves elamei leha, shlach l'chol adaitecha, that the flame rises now on its own, but the Kohen Gadol was the one that first lit it. But now he lit it in a way that it can burn on its own. All the examples in this context work. That you always need first the koiches that help you go there, and then, okay, now show what you can do.
I think one of the encouraging idea is we're talking about Ilum Ba'alam, that is Pnimi here might be Makif somewhere else. And the fact that it's Makif doesn't mean it's out. It's maybe just the form of Pnimi that we experience here. Everything is from one to another. And from this point of view, we don't know what power Makif have in comparison with Pnimi of our experience.
Are you saying something different than what it says here?
No, it's just as an idea how encouraging Makif can be if we will see the picture of Makif and Pnimi is entertained by each other.
Well, the simple example I gave, when you help your student or your child, you're giving them strength, but you want them then to rise on their own. And the more strength you give them, the more power they can then continue internalizing it. Yeah. Okay. So that finishes point number 4 in the Mitteler Rebbe's Maimer. There's still another 6 points to go. We're close to the bottom of page 11, up to point number 5. I think I'm going to stop here. Yeah, I don't want to start a new one right now because that's going to take. But he's going to continue in explaining what Ner Mitzvah contributes to the whole picture. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop here, close to the bottom of page 11. Are there any other questions? Okay, let's stop here.